Good evening. The end of President Trump's impeachment trial marked the beginning of a season of bitter political combat defined by the president's confidence and fury, and by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's own fury about the president's conduct. The president's State of the Union address reflected a deeply divided nation, with the president ignoring the speaker's outstretched hand and the speaker ripping up a copy of his remarks. The acrimony continued Thursday.
Nancy Pelosi is a horrible person. And she wanted to impeach a long time ago when she said, I pray for the president. I pray for the president. She doesn't pray. She may pray, but she prays for the opposite.
I pray hard for him because he's so off the track of our Constitution. He really needs our prayers. So he can say whatever he wants.
Joining us tonight to open their notebooks, Aisha Rasco, White House reporter for National Public Radio, Philip Rucker, White House bureau chief for The Washington Post, and co-author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, A Very Stable Genius, Zanny Minton-Beddoes, editor-in-chief of that great magazine, The Economist, the newspaper they actually call it in Britain, and Cheryl Gay Stolberg, stellar congressional correspondent for the New York Times. But let's start with the news Friday. The president took action that underscored his defiance. Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, a National Security Council aide who testified during the House impeachment hearings, was escorted off of White House grounds and removed from the NSC. And just before we sat down at 8 p.m. Eastern Friday, President Trump recalled Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the European Union. Phil, fresh from the White House and the beat today, is this a president unbound? Is he purging the ranks after impeachment?
It is, Bob. This is a president on a path for retribution. He is angry. He has grievances that he's been nursing for months through this impeachment inquiry, and he's determined to retaliate against everyone he believes wronged him in this process. And that is not limited to the Democratic congressional leaders. It includes those administration officials who testified against him, and it includes people within the government that he suspects of betraying him.
Aisha, was this a long time coming? Was this in the works?
It did seem for a while that Vindman, the Vindman twins, because his twin, Alexander Vindman's twin, also worked for the NSC, that there was distrust in the White House for them, this idea that they, the concern that they might have been leaking and this and that. And so there has been concern there. And I mean, I think that generally, I don't know that people thought that Sondland or Vindman would really stick around for a very long time, but to do it on the Friday after you were just acquitted is to say you're going to do what you want to do and you're not going to be stopped, and that you're going to get vengeance and you're not letting it go, right? It's not necessarily just celebration. It's I'm going to do what I want to do and I'm going to get rid of them.
Cheryl, you profiled the Vindman brothers for the New York Times. What's the significance of their departure?
Well, the Vindman brothers are immigrants. They're Ukrainian immigrants. They fled then the Soviet Republic of Ukraine when they were 3 years old. Truly an American story. They both grew up to be lieutenant colonels in the Army. They became citizens. They worked for the White House. So I think that there's a symbolism about it. Democrats have held up the Vindmans as great patriots. And you might remember in his closing remarks during the impeachment trial, Adam Schiff, the lead House manager, talked about Colonel Vindman, and he said, Colonel Vindman said that in this country, right matters. And Schiff went on to say, right matters, the truth matters. If right doesn't matter, we are lost. And now you have the spectacle of President Trump getting rid of that symbol, a symbol for Democrats of truth and righteousness and patriotism.
Zanny, beyond the president's frustration with their testimony, is this also a president who feels buoyed by the economy, Republican support during impeachment? You saw his State of the Union address and his remarks on Thursday.
Yeah, this is a president who feels emboldened. It's a president, I keep thinking of words beginning with V. It's a president who feels vindicated. It's a president who is vengeful. He's a vindicative kind of guy. And I think he sent it this week, in a week that was, frankly, an extraordinary week for him. You know, a poll puts him at his highest poll ratings ever. The Democrats have a fiasco in Iowa. He is acquitted. He's scenting victory, I think, too. And so to add another V to you, but yeah, I think this is part of a pattern of a president who has been able to get away with breaking norms and feeling vindicated. And, just a few weeks ago, we had the killing of Qasem Soleimani. Again, something that could have gone very badly wrong. It didn't. He thinks that he can get away with things. The economy is totally testament to that. He now really feels that he's made the economy great again. It's the great comeback. You keep hearing him say that. We're going to have him say that in the coming months a lot. And he thinks that what he's done has been great for the American economy. It's all because of him, and he's got it right. He's been vindicated, and he's going to be very vengeful for people who's in his way.
Phil, inside your book, there's a quote that stood out to me tonight amid all this news from Bill Galston, a senior fellow in governance at Brookings Institution. He says, quote, "We haven't seen anything like this in my lifetime. He appears to be daring the rest of the political system to stop him." When you look at the news tonight and you talk to your sources inside the West Wing, what now?
Well, the political system tried to stop him. The Democrats in the House impeached him, which will be with him forever and in the history books. And yet the system isn't stopping him because Republicans in the Senate are so fearful of him, so fearful of his political power and his hold on the Republican voting base, that they're willing to let him get away with actions that many of them acknowledge publicly they view as improper and wrong, speaking of his conduct in Ukraine. And so what we've seen is a president with extraordinary power now coming away from this episode, just as he came away from the Russia investigation by Robert Mueller, feeling that he's not going to be held accountable. He can get away with what he wants to do, and there aren't repercussions for him.
What about the Senate Republicans? I know they just acquitted him in the Senate, but will they push back against this decision on Lieutenant Colonel Vindman and Ambassador Sondland? I
would not be surprised to hear at least of some quiet pushback. Whether they will push back in public against this president remains to be seen. I feel confident that senators like Susan Collins of Maine and Lindsey Graham, even of South Carolina, a strong ally of the president, but who was very much opposed to the president firing Bob Mueller, and others will be very, very uneasy with the actions that this president has taken. But will they say it in public?
It's going to be very hard for Senator Collins. She said, that just this week, she said that President Trump had learned a great lesson from impeachment.
She walked it back,
She walked it back. She's going to have to walk it back a lot further in the face of this. I find it very hard to see how, with the notable exception of Senator Romney, the other senators can really push back too much in the face of something where they have vindicated his behavior earlier this week.